Hello, everybody, and hello, David. My name is
Hello,
Stephanie.
good afternoon, Stephanie. Hi, I'm David. I'm the Managing Director of Perfectly Spoken, and thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much for joining us for this live news talk. The concept behind this mini series is that we're going to be discussing stories making headlines around the world. Now, these stories are really up to date because we take new content every week to make sure that we're discussing what's going on right now.
And what we're going to do is focus on three words in each of these reports that we believe will be really useful for you to help you practice your English.
Absolutely. So this series is called News Talk. As I mentioned, the idea is that we discuss topical stories taking place around the globe. As we do, we'll be drawing your attention to some useful vocabulary. We'll encourage you to listen out for the words as we're talking, and then we'll discuss the definitions as well.
And please, please, please send us your questions, give us your comments. It's your chance to interact, to speak to us as well.
Absolutely. So we really welcome any comments, any questions. Please use the chat feature. We'll be looking at the comments that go live as we're working through the stories. I think we should probably start by introducing ourselves again for those people just joining us. So, David, would you like to start?
Yep. Hello, I'm David. I'm the Managing Director of Perfectly Spoken.
And I'm Stephanie. I'm Head of Educational Content. And today we are going to be talking about these three stories. Now, you'll notice that there's some words missing. That's because we'd like to ask you, what do you think these three missing words are?
Indeed. So these are three massive stories that were in the news last week, and we think they are really, we've got some really interesting content to share with you.
There's a big clue with the pictures, I have to say. I think there's some really iconic logos going on here.
Indeed, indeed. Can anybody tell us? So the first article we're going to talk about, I wonder what company that could possibly be.
It's interesting, isn't it, when a company is so well known that you don't even need words. It's just that logo. And I'm sure if you're watching, you know what company we're going to be talking about.
And I think the same is probably the same with the third one, and I think there's a clue, even a clue there in the picture. And then with the second one for football fans, I think this is a really really interesting story.
Absolutely. So let's get started. Let's start with our first story. Here we go. So, of course, the company we're talking about is Apple. And we learned this week that Apple has made nearly $100 billion already this year. Now, before we start discussing this topic, have a look at the selected words. We've got revenue, a quarter, and profit. I can see that Cesar correctly guessed that it's Apple. Well done, Cesar. Excellent. So, as we're discussing this news story, listen out for the vocabulary and see if you can work out what these words mean from their context.
So I think it's interesting. So even the word billion, which of course, you know, we have million, billion, and trillion. I hope everybody knows the difference. So a million is 1,000 thousand. So that's one with 6 zeros. A billion is 1,000 million. So you get one with 9
Nine.
zeros. And then a trillion is
Does anyone know?
a million. Sorry, I've given you the answer. It's a million. So you get one with 12 zeros.
That's a lot of zeros. So Apple has a lot of zeros, $100 billion in revenue for the second quarter. So that's a 9% increase from their previous reported profit.
So
Um,
and the quarter I think was January, February, March. That was the first quarter of the year.
Absolutely. So huge news for Apple, perhaps not unexpected. I mean, it's a very, very popular brand, isn't it? And I'm sure none of you will be surprised to know what the biggest earner is for Apple. Does anyone have any idea what the biggest earner, so what Apple product do you think is generating the most profit for Apple? I wonder if anyone has any idea.
Could it possibly be?
Well, David, yeah, absolutely. The answer is the iPhone. And my next question was going to be, do you have an iPhone, David?
I certainly do. And I think, isn't it true that over half of the company's earnings, which leads to their profit, half of it come from sales of iPhone. I think they sold over 15. Well done, Michaela. Yes,
Michaela, yeah,
they've
you're right, Michaela.
they sold over 50 billion pounds worth of iPhones.
Incredible, isn't it? Michaela correctly said iPhones. Do you have an iPhone, Michaela? I feel like I might be outnumbered here. Darko's also gone with iPhone. Yeah, well guessed, everybody. Interesting to know who has an iPhone. I think I might be outnumbered because I don't have an iPhone. I have an Android. I wonder, am I?
But it is interesting, you know. I looked up some statistics. I wonder if people know this, but you know, so if you think about the number of devices they sold over this period, there were 230 million. So 230 million iPhones, then
Incredible.
71 million iPads, 20 million Mac and MacBooks, and 110 million AirPods and 43 million Apple Watches. No wonder they're making so much profit.
Absolutely. And I can see in the chat that Michaela's saying she has an iPhone too. So I think I possibly am outnumbered here, but just goes to show, doesn't it, the popularity of Apple products.
Yeah, and you're quite right this out as well. Yeah, it's their flagship product. Yeah, yeah. And any ideas what, you know, because of course a company that is so profitable needs to keep up that profitability. So what do you think in the future Apple is going to be investing in to increase the revenue and sales? Any ideas?
That's a very good question. If you'd like to share your ideas, it's very easy to take part. Just type in the chat. What do you think? Is a really interesting question there. How can Apple continue? Because of course, companies like Apple have to look to the future to think what's next, to foresee the next trends.
And to make more profit for their
Well,
shareholders who have invested in them. So, so,
absolutely.
so according to my research, there are two areas where Apple thinks it's really going to make significant profit. Michaela, I think the glasses for virtual vision, I think that's an excellent answer. It's those, we call them virtual reality headsets that everybody is now starting to investigate and experiment with. That is certainly one. And the other area, I believe, is they're going to start competing with companies like Tesla. So they are investing in self-driving cars.
Still not convinced about self-driving cars.
No, I'm with you.
Okay, let's have a look then at the vocabulary, shall we? So as we were talking, hopefully you noticed us using these words. So let's have a look at the definition. First of all, we've got revenue, and I said that Apple had $97.3 billion in revenue. That's the income that a company receives regularly.
And then, of course, we talked about the quarter. So quarter, logically, is the quarter of a year. So it's 3 months of a year. So you have the first quarter, the second quarter, and normally those quarters follow. So the first quarter normally is January to March, the second one, April to to June, etc. Yeah, and the fourth quarter is October to December.
I can see that Cesar has just typed in an answer there, that the next step is in the artificial intelligence field. That's a good answer there, Cesar.
Yeah, totally agreed.
And finally, so the final word on this slide, we had profit. So I talked about Apple making $25 billion profit. That, of course, is money earned after paying costs. So you have to take the costs away, and the money that you have left is your profit.
And
Good.
I'm sure we can all think of some other companies that make lots and lots of profit. For example, anybody?
Again, if you'd like to take part, type in the chat. Really interesting to find out your ideas and your opinions. Let's move on to the second story, shall we?
So this story, if you are a football fan, was just extraordinary. So you've got two of the biggest football teams in the world. You've got Real Madrid and Manchester City, and they are playing in the semi-final of the Champions League, which is possibly the biggest football competition in the world. And in the first leg, the first part, Manchester City had beaten Real Madrid by, I think it was 4-3 at home in Manchester. And then they come to Real Madrid, playing against Real Madrid. They win. They are winning 1-0. And they reached the 90th minute. And as you know, in football matches, you have 90 minutes. And then after that, possibly extra time. But that's the end of the game. So how on earth was Real Madrid going to win? And this is the story of their comeback. So they are losing. And then in the 90th minute, they actually score not one, but 2 goals, which is absolutely incredible. And then, so the two teams are tied, they are drawing, and they have to go through extra time. Nothing happens. And then it carries on, and there is a penalty. And a penalty is when one player causes a problem, creates an issue with another player, and the referee awards a penalty. And Real Madrid were given that penalty, and they scored another goal. It was brilliant. It was a brilliant match to watch.
And I wonder if we have any football fans watching now. Perhaps you'd like to tell us who you support. Who's your team? Hello, Ali Abdi. So we're talking about the Real Madrid win, the comeback. So very exhilarating, a surprising comeback, perhaps, or perhaps not. But they came from behind to win the match. And of course, the final will be taking place at the end of May in Paris.
So you've got, you already had two of the most famous teams in the world, and now in Paris you're going to have Liverpool playing against Real Madrid. Now, as you football fans will know, this competition is massive. And guess which club has won the championship most times?
That's a tricky one, David. I'm not a huge football fan, so I'm not sure I know the answer to that. Perhaps somebody would like to help out in the chat.
I don't know if anybody knows, but certainly it's one. I'll tell you, it's Real Madrid. Real Madrid, Michaela. I know,
yeah,
but it's
absolutely.
interesting. But the Spanish clubs have won most victories in this competition, followed by the English club. And English teams have won the competition 14 times, but Spanish clubs have won 18 times. And
wow.
Real Madrid is the champion of the champions.
So no doubt favourites to take the cup again at the end of the month.
Indeed. So it was an amazing comeback, and this final, this will be a rematch again with Liverpool. So Real Madrid will be playing Liverpool once more.
Yeah, so a rematch of the 2018 final, and interestingly, Real Madrid won that one. So I don't know what that means. Does that mean that they should be feeling very confident? I think they probably should, but no doubt it will be a very exciting match nonetheless.
I think it will be. So shall we have a look at
Absolutely.
the words that we were discussing? So again, if you think about the word come back, return, yeah. So you're returning to an earlier position. So Real Madrid came back. They came back from a losing position to a winning position.
And the second word we had was a penalty, and David was explaining that there was in fact a
Badly.
penalty in this match. And of course, a penalty is a goal that's scored from the spot, but this happens after a foul has been committed in the area, so in the box around the goal. If the opposing team commit a foul, then the other team will have a chance to score a penalty. And of course, Real Madrid capitalized on that this time.
So rematch again. Look at you've got the which means again. So you are playing again the same opponents.
Good. Let's move on to our third story. So well done if you identified that logo. There's a bit of a big clue there. We had the letters as well. Of course, we're talking about BP. So the story here, BP profit soars to highest in over a decade. And this is despite some significant losses. So they've made a loss in certain areas, but despite this, they've offset these losses and still managed to make a profit.
So there again, we've got the word profit that we were talking about earlier, and the lovely verb soar, which is so common, so widely used in newspaper headlines and on TV news. You know, when you soar, I'm sure you can imagine what that means. We'll have a look at the definition in a minute.
And of course, as we've discussed before, when we're talking about headlines need to be dramatic. So a lot of the language that they're likely to use, they use for dramatic impact to really get your attention and pull you into the story. Now, the curious thing here as well is that not only is the profit soaring, but has in fact doubled from the year before to $6.2 billion. Another astronomical figure, I think.
It is, isn't it? It's just amazing. So of course, you know, these oil companies, oil and gas, and companies are now making so much profit. Um, while you know, and it'll be interesting to hear what our listeners think about this and what governments should do about these companies that are making so much profit now.
Absolutely, especially when we consider what for a lot of people is now a very expensive visit to fill up their cars. Um, it's a big story making headlines here in the UK and has been for quite some time now. The cost of fuel, what it costs to fill up your car compared to what it used to cost. I wonder for those watching, do we have any drivers? Is it a similar story in your country?
Indeed. And I think it was interesting you were saying, Stephanie, that their profits have doubled. Yeah. So that's, as you can imagine, that's a huge difference. And we've got double, which is times something,
Two.
and then two possibly, yes. And then if you times three, then you
Now I know the answer to this. I wonder if anyone else does. If you time something by 3, you what it? It's, well, let's go with
indeed,
tripled.
it's triple. You can triple the amount. You can also quadruple, but that's not commonly used, is it? Which would be 4 times the amount.
Absolutely. So let's have a look at the definitions here. So we started off with soar, to rise very quickly to a high level.
And
So
sorry, and I think, we see soar, that verb, used in so many different contexts. For example, temperatures are soaring. Temperatures are going up very quickly in countries at the moment. I think in India, temperatures are soaring.
And we have a very good question here from Michaela, who says, "What does fill up mean?" I did use it, Michaela. Well spotted. If you if you fill something up, it means you put liquid in it up to the top, so the maximum amount. So I fill up my car with petrol. I fill up my car with diesel. But if you fill something up, you put liquid in it or something in it to fill it to reach the maximum level. So it's
Indeed.
very expensive to fill up your car at the moment. The second word we had here on this slide, to offset. Now, if you offset something, you balance against, you compensate for something. So I said that despite the losses, the performance in oil and gas have offset these. So they made a
Yeah.
loss, but they've offset them in their performance in oil and gas trading.
Yeah, and another context, for example, if you buy a flight, then what you can do is offset your carbon emissions. You can pay additional money so that the company uses that money to balance, to compensate for the carbon footprint you are creating.
That's a really good point, and I think it's quite a common feature now, especially with long haul flights. If you fly long haul, you're offered the opportunity to offset your carbon footprint by, for example, giving money to plant trees to offset the negative impact you're having on the environment. I wonder if anyone has ever done that. Be interesting to find out.
Indeed.
And so our
And
final
then
word, David.
is to double, yeah, which is Stephanie has put, is to become twice as much or as many. And then we said double, triple is 3 times, and quadruple is 4 times.
I think this is a nice, easy verb to use. There were double the number of students in the class, twice as many. So it's a nice verb. It's very straightforward, very easy to use.
And of course, it's a regular verb. So the company doubled its profits.
Exactly. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed our discussions today. Remember, David, would you like to talk us through
Yeah,
this
please
next slide?
remember that what we're doing is giving you an insight, an introduction into some of the articles that we have in our Newsflash series. And Newsflash is a great way because we use topical articles of current news, and it's a great way for you to practice listening to natural, authentic English and reading real English. It hasn't been changed in any way, and this all comes from our partner, our media partner, Reuters.
Absolutely. And what we really want to do through this is to help you increase your vocabulary. And what's key is looking at words in context. So, exactly as we've done today, we've highlighted, we've drawn your attention to some words, but hopefully you heard us use them. So you could really hear the vocabulary used in an authentic, in a real way.
Indeed.
So, thank you very much to everybody for joining us today.
And we hope that very much that you will join us next week, where we've got some fun articles to discuss, and hopefully you'll be able to join us and ask us your questions, give us your comments.
Absolutely. So it's the same time, same place. We'll be here on this channel with 3 different stories, more words for you to look at, to learn, and to use. So we really hope to see you then. It's goodbye for now. Thank you for joining
Goodbye.
us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.